Well, it's a great privilege for me to be here today. And I say that not just uttering words. It's almost like coming back to a family reunion. I attended Ambassador College here at Big Sandy. And during that period of time, Wayne's already alluded to it, that we played basketball together. And there's a little bit of a story to this thing about how I was a dirty basketball player. I wasn't so dirty as I was clumsy. So I would like to correct that just a little bit. There is this particular time. I still feel guilty about it. Not that you would guess by me talking about it, but we were, it was one of those times where we were on a fast break and Wayne was on the other team, and I was remembering days of long ago when I could move quick one way and then the other and fake. And so I faked this way and that way, and Wayne was blocking the basket, and he didn't move for either one of those fakes, and I wasn't of the old, Michael Jordan skills that I could move around him, and so I just plowed right into him. And I remember sitting there, Wayne, why did you run into? I've been standing here since you started running down into the court. You had to run all the way fast as you could go and just run right into me. Anyway. Listen, if there's any consolation to this, now I couldn't make it down from one end of the court to the other, Wayne, so by the time I would run into you, it wouldn't hurt anymore, And Larry Watkins was my instructor in accounting, and his wife. I used to remember delivering things to your house when I was over in shipping and receiving, and we'd bring things out to the house and stuff like that. And Dennis, I baptized Dennis in 1983. That was the last century. That was the last millennium. Anyway, we're talking to, where's Wesley? And I saw Wesley Worthen last night and worked with his father. It can't be that long. I worked with his father. And Hank Smith, when you were a little girl, just running around there getting in everybody's way. So anyway, it was a great program last night. It was talented. It was enthusiastic. It was just really neat. So when I say coming back to these things is such a privilege, it is. As you grow older, as some of you will, some of us have, and you look back, what is you don't worry about and don't care about anymore are things, and what you really do care about is these relationships, particularly relationships of character, where people have maintained the faith. When you change your life and you walk away and your parents don't understand, and there's some little tense conversations, and your friends, and that's past. And then when you get here and you have arrived at the promised land, and then there's a few rugs that get pulled out from under you, and you see people fall away, and you come back together for these family reunions. It's heartwarming. It is heartwarming to see your faces. And so I appreciate being here. Thank you so much for allowing me this privilege of coming here and seeing you and coming back to the old sort of family gathering place. I want to talk to you today about something that's happening to the world. It's a change in values, and you got to be aware of it. We just have to be aware of it. Something happened in Cincinnati, where I live, a few weeks ago, and you may have heard about it down here. It's been talked about around the world. It was about a guy named Harambe. You remember Harambe? Harambe was a gorilla. Okay, so all right. See, she was at Camp Outreach, and I talked about this. Now I told you not to tell your mother about what I'm going to talk about next, and here she already. Does she? She doesn't mind. I want to know, does she have a clean room at home? Let me ask her sister. Is it a messy room or a clean one? It's messy. Oh. It's not messy? All right. No, she was a wonderful worker at Camp Outreach, serving people, and it's a hot, sweaty, stinky job, and but somebody has to do it. And these kids not only volunteer, they pay to go there and do it. So anyway, but we were talking. I was talking to the young adults and kids that were there, and some adults about Harambe the gorilla. Now, what happened was, Harambe was a endangered species silverback gorilla in the Cincinnati Zoo. Okay, so there's this little kid who's 4 years old. His mother has 4 kids there at the zoo, and as 4-year-olds will do, he got away from the group as they were looking at the gorilla enclosure, and he hopped over a hedge and through a barrier and jumped down this thing that nobody would want to jump down into, but he did. And so Harambe, the gorilla, goes over and he grabs this little guy. And the zookeepers and everybody they're all gathering around. What are we going to do? And so it took a little bit of time. And they had a marksman to come out there with a real gun. And so they eventually were able to separate all the gorillas except Harambe didn't want to be separated from the child, so they could go out there and get him out. And so he went over and grabbed this little 4-year-old, and he was treating him kind of roughly. And so they said, it's time for Harambe to go. And the marksman took a bead, and they saved the life of the little boy. But Harambe is no longer with us. Okay. 300,000 people signed a petition to condemn the zoo for killing Harambe. 300,000 people. Now you saw something happen just a couple of weeks after that in Disney World, where an alligator got a little, was it a 2-year-old child or 1.5-1-year-old, something like that, child, and killed it. Now, let me ask you, was it right for the zoo to kill the gorilla? It was? Yes, some say yes. Most of you are saying yes. Okay. Well, why? Why is that human life more important than that gorilla's life? All right, you can go ahead and answer. She forgot. See how long my sermons last. I'm telling you, boy, it's heartwarming. Years later, we come back. What was that we talked about? Oh, let me see. I think I forgot. She's thinking about it. It's coming back to her. Help her out now. Why is it okay to kill a gorilla to save a human being? What, intelligent life? We're on the right track here. We're coming in the right direction. Oh, who said that? Whew, that is a brilliant lady there. Say it again. A human being is made in the image of God. Now you understand that about you. You are made in the image of God. God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over gorillas, the fish of the sea, birds of the air, the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Is that fair? Is it fair that my grandfather could hook up a plow to an ox and plow the ground with that ox rather than the ox hooking up the plow to my grandfather and him plowing the ground? Is that fair? Over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him. Male and female, He created them. Then God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and every living thing that moves on the earth. Now, how does it change a human being to be made in God's image? What are the differences in you because you were made in the image of God rather than, well, one thing, it means you couldn't have evolved. Because, look, if this is evolution, then chickens are made in the image of God. Cows and horses and gorillas and all these things are made in the image of God. But they aren't. And if we evolved, we're all the same thing. Paul talked about the body. We're all an arm. We're not legs. We're not ears. We're not eyes. Did Jesus Christ die for a gorilla? No, absolutely not. He did not die for a gorilla. Now, is that fair? Is it fair that Jesus Christ would die for you and not for the gorilla? Is it? Well, now, would you have the right to go out and die for something if you wanted to, somebody? Do you have a right to choose? Do you have a right? How long have you guys been married? How many? 48 years. Man alive. You don't look like you've been married 48. I'll tell you what, it's wonderful to be up here picking on people, isn't it? Now, there were a lot of guys back there at Mississippi State University who wanted to marry her. No? What was it? Oh, AC. You didn't. Oh, how wonderful. All right, there's a lot of guys back at Ambassador College that would like to have married her. Is it fair that she married you? Oh, what about all those other guys that missed out? I wanted you to be my wife. I wanted you to bear my children. Is that fair? Every woman here, her husband, can ask the same thing. Is it fair that you selected me and I have been faithful to you and have honored you and borne children for you and fixed your, breakfast every morning, and when you were sick, I made your chicken soup and did all those things for you? And yes, it's fair. That's what you chose. There's an interesting statement. We can play this "Is it fair" game over in Exodus, the 19th chapter. You know what happens that children of Israel are coming out of Egypt. And so when they came out of Egypt, God said, well, we need to talk, Moses. And I've done all these miracles. And so Moses, come up here and let's talk. And Moses went up to him and he said, I want you to go tell the children of Israel. This is what I want you to tell them. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean to I bore you on eagle's wings? We took the YOU group up to, come on, say it. That place up in Wyoming, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And we camped by the Snake River, and we hiked up into the Grand Teton, and we took a river rafting trip down the Snake River and the rapids, and we got to this one place. You come down these rapids, and you're in this really calm area of the river. I mean, it's just absolutely millennial. And there next to that river is this sheer cliff, 500 feet up there. At the top of that cliff is a nest for an eagle. There's an eagle's nest. It's 500 feet up there. And so I'm thinking about, here is Mama Eagle and Papa Eagle and a bunch of little eaglets. And so the little eaglets, they're up there talking, Dad, when are we going to be able to fly? When are we going to be able to fly? Well, one of these days, Charlie, you're going to be able to fly. All right. So Charlie and Bill, they're looking. Finally, one day, Dad says, it's time for Charlie to learn to fly. You got wings. You have feathers. You can fly now. Oh, great, Dad. How are we going to do this? And Pop goes out and he starts circling around. And Mom comes over and she goes, "Pip!" And Charlie falls out of the nest. And he's tumbling head over heels and wing over wing, and he's looking at the ground, and sometimes he's all dizzy, and about 100 feet before the bottom of the ground, Pop comes under him, and he lands on his pinions. How'd that flight go, son? That was good, Dad. I didn't like that flying a bit. Why don't you go teach me to fly? And he takes him back up to the nest. Well, let's try this again. Now look, what you got to do, you got to put those wings out there. Now see the front of that wing? That's an airfoil. And you get those feathers, and you got to learn to just manipulate those feathers so that you can flow. Why didn't you tell me that the first time? So he goes out there flying, and Mom goes, boop! And he goes, let me see, I got these wings out here. And he, for a little bit, he can sort of grab the wind. And then it's head over head and wing over wing, and it's falling all over the place, and the earth's coming at him fast. And then about the time he's just going to smash, and it ends it off, Dad comes under there, grabs him, and he lands on his pinions again, takes him back up the nest, and they do this again and again and again until one day, eventually, little Charlie finds that airfoil, that little wind, and he is able to fly. Now, there's another part in this story, and that is Charlie has to learn to find the wind, because you don't just make yourself fly. You have to find the air current. It's sort of like a surfer. Does a surfer make the wave? No, 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 no. A good surfer finds the wave. Do we catch the analogy here? I brought you out on eagle's wings. Now, I got to say something that, the leaders, Vance and Wynn and all the other guys will not say. But I can say it. Because for church leaders to find the wind, to find the wave and move with it. I was thinking about that last night while this bots thing was going on. This is catching the wind. If you were going to look at the Church of God right now, where would you say the wave is? Where's the wind? What is the wind analogous to? Breathe on you the breath of life, which is the Holy Spirit. Where is the Holy Spirit moving now? That's what we got to know. Because we can go out and flap our wings and, paddle our surfboard, and we can do all kinds of things. But if God doesn't send the wind, if we don't find that air current, if we don't find that wave, we have spent our time in vain. So, I just want to say, having looked around, I've seen so many of us as churches, we get this first part, we are the people of God. We're the ones God set apart. We got this, He's with us. Be something good about me. And then we go falling flat on our feathers, And we weren't doing what we were supposed to do because it was about us rather than about God. But where the Spirit seems to be moving now is in this, can we call it sovereign collaboration? That is, you don't give up who you are, but you learn to collaborate, to cooperate. And folks, I don't care how big we are or you are, that characteristic is seeing where the Spirit of God is moving. It's a blessed activity. It is not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord. So, let me applaud your leadership for having the vision to see where the wind is moving. It's a great thing. On eagle's wings and brought you to myself. You know, after all the things that Dennis and I were talking before this began, after all the things that have happened, it's really good to see people who've stuck with the faith, still with God. Now therefore, indeed, if you will obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Is that fair? God reached down and take this one group of people and say, you're going to be special to me. Of all the people on the earth, 7 billion people on the earth, and you are special in the eyes of God. Well, that's the question Paul asked in Romans, the 9th chapter. He talks about Rebekah's children. There were 2 of them. They were twins. There's Esau and there's Jacob. And he says, before the twins were born and had done anything good or bad in order that God's purpose and election might stand, not by works, but by him who calls, she was told, the older will serve the younger. So, Jacob have I loved, and Esau I hated. Is that fair? What shall we say then? Paul asked. Is God just? Is he unjust? Oh, no, he's not unjust. For he said to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I'll have compassion on whom I will have compassion. This is a conundrum for us to be able to understand. Now, here's the question. Did God owe you the death of his son? Is that something he owed to you? No. He had the right to give that, but he had the right not to give it. Did he owe mankind his life? Wasn't it enough he could just say, all right, here you are, I'm going to let you have life. Let's see if you can do it. I mean, plop you out of the nest, let you just flop around, and if you learn to fly, I've given you life. You know, it was a great opportunity. It was a beautiful vision on the way down, but smat, and you're gone. That's good enough. He didn't owe me life. But what he did was to give his life. Okay. Now, when I was in high school, that was when Mustangs were invented. Okay, so I drove down to the Ford place one day when my dad and mom didn't know I was going down there, and I said, hey, what's the value? How much you want for this this brand spanking new 65 or 64 and a half Mustang? $2,300. Oh, really? $2,300, you know? Well, okay, let me think about that. You want to come down on that price anymore? Yeah. Nope. $2,300. We wouldn't sell it for $22.99. Oh boy, you guys have been driving a hard bargain here. I was ready to give you $22.99. Okay, I didn't have 99 cents, but anyway. So, time goes on. I've found a Mustang, and he restored it. And you know what he sold it for? $25,000. Just a few years ago. It's probably worth more now. Now, what's $2,300, $25,000. I lived in West Virginia for a while, and they have in West Virginia things called hollers. A holler is where these mountains come together, and there's a kind of a switchback in the road, and back where that switchback occurs, there's a lot of, where water's coming down from the mountain, and where there's, just a big open area back there and trees growing. And so sometimes people will dispose of their old cars back in those hollers. Well, in the summer, you can't see them because all the leaves growing on those trees, and it's all beautiful. But then fall comes, the leaves turn colors, it's beautiful, but then they fall. And you look back in there and say, oh, man. And I was driving through one of those, and here is the rusted out hulk of a 65 Mustang. You know how much it was worth? not 25 cents. Now, what's a 65 Mustang worth? $2,300? $25,000? Or 25 cents? What do you think? What is the value of that car? It is worth what somebody will pay for it. You got your house on the market, and you say, I want to sell that house for $100,000. And then something comes in right next door to it, and suddenly it's worth, we got a mall came in down the street from us, and there was a guy who had a house out there that was worth maybe a couple $100,000, and there's a sign that's up there in front of it, $800,000 because of this brand new mall. One day it's worth $200, the next day it's worth $800. What will somebody pay for it? What was paid for you? What was paid for you was the death of God. Now you've got to let that sink in. The value of you as a human being is the death of the Son of God. Now there's a problem with all of this. It is. You have been bought, but you also have an adversary. Now, this adversary hates you. I don't know why. You're a nice person. You pay your bills, well, most of the time. You never get mad at your wife, well, most of the time. You try to live a good life. And you've repented of your sins, and you've accepted God, and you want to do what is right, but there's an adversary, and you know what? You can't reason with him. I tell you, every time I pass one of these cars that says, bumper sticker says, coexist. If somebody has one, I don't want to offend you. But I have a question. How do I coexist with an insane terrorist who is bent on killing me? There's only one way. I become his slave and let him kill me. Then we can live together. Maybe, for a while. So how do you reason about Satan's desire to destroy? But his great desire, and it is we can find an understanding of it when he met Jesus Christ and they had their great battle. The great desire of Satan was revealed in that conversation in one request that caused Jesus to defeat Satan. It was, I will give you all the kingdoms of this world if you will fall down and worship me. Okay? Now, why was Satan cast out of the third heaven? Because he desired to replace God and the object of worship. So, now I'm saying all that, leading up to bring this back around to another connection, so stay with me. Satan has possessed lots of military leaders and world dictators in the past. Now, there was a time Hitler died, but a lot of us would say he must have been possessed by Satan, like the end time Hitlers will be. Where'd the demon go? What happened to that demon? Did he die too? No. He went to another human. How do you know what human? Well, you only know by the signs. So Jesus warned us that there would be deception, and he warned us frankly of that over and over. Many will come in my name, saying I'm the Christ. Angels of Satan, Paul said, don't be alarmed. They appear as angels of God. So the desire of Satan is to be worshipped as God. And in time, the real key factor is where this evil man, this man of evil, is going to go in where all these sacrifices had been offered morning and evening for 1,150 days, and he goes into that temple and everything's out, and he stands in the Holy of Holies of this newly created, fairly recently created temple, and he says, I'm God. That's the abomination of desolation. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of in Daniel, hey, This is it. Okay. Saying that to say, what is the object of worship today? Where's the world going with worship? I mean, you don't see them building totem poles out here. There aren't some golden calves. There aren't the things of these symbols that people used to use. What is the object of worship today? Well, let me go back to Harambe and to global warming and to a lot of things like that, that it is nature. Dennis Prager calls this worship of nature the religion of our time. In World War II, the religion was nationalism. Germany was the one that was worshipped, but it's been supplanted, he says, by the earth. Environmentalism is taking over the U.S. as the God to worship, and the intellectuals are leading the charge. The president has declared the greatest threat to the U.S. is global warming. Wait. The greatest threat is global warming? The intellectuals followed Darwin to remove God as creator. The intellectuals supported Marx to say, well, we need all to have an equal amount of everything. So if you've got a little bit more than me, then you need to give it to me, or at least the government needs to have you give it to me. The intellectuals of Germany supported Hitler. Do you know whose picture was on Hitler's wall? He had a picture of a great American on his wall. Henry Ford. Henry Ford and Hitler were like that. Ford was very anti-Semitic. And so Hitler has on his wall this picture, signed, autographed picture of Henry Ford. The elite, the leaders, the intellectuals. Now, they're telling us that the God to worship is nature. They've removed God from our schools, from our town square. There was a magazine cover on Time magazine in 2008, April of 2008. You know, the iconic photo of World War II was where the Marines, remember what they were doing? Raising the flag on Iwo Jima. Time magazine replaced that with something else. They had these soldiers on Iwo Jima, and guess what they were raising? A tree. A tree! The clear message is that our allegiance must not be to our country, but to nature. Save Harambe. Save the planet. Save the alligators. Man is worthless. The new religion, the Judeo-Christian view of the world has dominated Western civilization for all of the West history, is that man is the pinnacle of God's creation. He's made in the image of God. He has a mind with which to think. Nature was created for man. Nature has no intrinsic value other than it serves man. Jesus did not die for the planet. He died for you. The earth is going to burn up. There will be new heavens and a new earth, and you will live forever. Way back when, man was ordered to destroy the groves and other objects of nature worship. Man was ordered, remember, the memory scripture about Christmas? Jeremiah 10:3. Well, 10:2 says, do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the Gentiles are dismayed at them. The message of the creation story is three things. One, when you go back and read Genesis, God created nature. God is not in nature. Nature is not God. Nature is His handiwork. Therefore, it is He, not nature, that is to be worshipped. The pagan world held nature in esteem. Its gods were gods of nature, not above nature. So he says, don't learn the way of the Gentiles. Don't be dismayed at the signs of the heavens, but man is dismayed at the signs of global warming. Secondly, nature cannot be worshiped because nature is amoral, whereas God is moral. A giant redwood is not concerned that it blocks the sunlight from short trees. A whale is not concerned that it eats plankton. We had a rat snake out in our front yard, and I kind of liked it. He was right there at the front porch, and he would come up, and it's a concrete block, a concrete porch about 3 feet off the ground, and that little snake, he'd come up there and he'd point his head around, and I kind of like him. And we had no rats. I mean, they weren't any place to be found. And my wife said, I don't like that snake, and besides that, my mother's coming to visit. You get rid of that snake. I said, yes, ma'am. Because I didn't deserve to have somebody come bear children for me. and so she has a lot of say around our place. So I got rid of that snake. Because God made me have dominion over the snakes, at least the ones in my front yard. Now the mice have come back. Okay. But that rat snake was not moral about eating rats. He ate them. And he didn't cry about it. Third, all creation has one purpose. Creation has a purpose. You know what it is? The final creation, the human being. Look, what is the purpose of the sun? Gives you heat. If that sun went away, you'd die. It's got to stay there. It grows our food. If it went away, you wouldn't have food to eat. So what's the purpose of food? So you can have something to eat and you can live. What's the purpose of water? So you can have something to drink and you can live. Do you understand that without you, now I don't want to make you proud. That's where we've been. It ought to humble us that this creation God made for us. It's a fantastic thought. It ought to humble us. It has no purpose except to serve mankind. God made animals in the Old Testament that were sacrificed for man. You didn't find man going out and be sacrificed. I used to have a Scottish Terrier, and he had to die sometime. He was getting sick. I didn't want him to die, but he did. But it wouldn't be. Could I die for McTavish? To reverse the concept so that man is made for the benefit of nature is to deny God as creator. Animals are not made in the image of God. A few years ago, there was a little boy. He was 4 years old. There's a lot of 4-year-old kids in this process, aren't there? Kevin Vincente was his name. And he was attacked by a pit bull. He was left with a broken jaw and a broken eye socket, where that jaw of that pit bull had crushed down on him. A Facebook page was created to raise money. Are you ready? As a legal defense fund to save the dog. There was no defense fund to pay for Kevin's surgeries, and he will have surgeries for most of his life. The Save Mickey page garnered over 70,000 likes and raised enough money to hire lawyers to keep that dog from being killed. There were even candlelight vigils for the dog. People went out with candles and prayed to God. Save Mickey! Just because he hurt that little innocent boy. There was another dog in Nevada, and the same people that were raising money for Mickey raise money to save a dog that fatally mauled a toddler, just a 1.5 to 2-year-old child. All right. Now, I'm saying all this to say one other thing. It's very important for us. There's a book called The Israel Test by George Gilder. It's just a fantastic, great book. And he quotes this example by a Jewish intellectual. His name is Aumann. And they were talking about the Arab versus Jew conflict. And he says, every time there's a conflict between Israel and the Arabs, Israel gives in. You want more land? Even though you got all this land, I mean, look at that map. You got tiny little Israel surrounded by... Well, we give in. We give in. All right, we'll give you this. What do they get in return? Nothing. We want something else. We want to put our guns at your border and point them at your house. Okay, all right. We want to lob bombs. You know, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And so he was asked, why do we always lose these battles? The answer: because the Arabs, the Muslims, love their God more than we love our God. He said, we have lost the holiness of our cause. To the Jews, nothing is holy. To the Muslims, their cause is holy. Now let me ask you something, because this really resonates with me. After all we've seen in the Church of God, what is holy to Christians? What is holy to us anymore? Is life holy? We will commit abortions. Is life holy? We believe in homosexuality. We will come to the point of euthanasia for older people. Is marriage holy? Is worship holy? The Muslims will go to Wall Street on Friday afternoon and they will crowd the middle of the street and bow down and pray and block the street so the police have to route traffic around them. And Christians will say, Sabbath, that's too much. That's too much to ask. One guy I was talking to who had grown up Jewish, and he had kind of given it up and gone back to it. But he said, "Oh, I wouldn't keep the Jewish dietary laws. It's just too much trouble. That's too much trouble." There was a survey not too long ago of people, the young people, and they were talking about. Now we're talking. When I say young, I'm talking to anybody that's 110 and less. Now, it's like 40 and under. That have what's your religious affiliation? And so there's a lot there are many of them now who are checking off none. I have none at all. No religious beliefs. Of those who check that box, none, 78% of them grew up in a Christian family. 78%. And they're just giving up Christianity. What is holy to us anymore? What I want to just leave you with is the Church of God, you and I, have the greatest message that has ever been on this earth. It is the greatest message in the world. There is no school, no political party, no church that has such a profound and true message as the Church of God. We're not going to float around on a cloud. We're not going to be an eternal retirement plan. We're not going to heaven. Jesus Christ is going to come here. And you are going to rule over, a city or 5 cities or 10 cities. You are created in the image of God to become a member of His family. Don't give up the holiness of our cause.